You approached cancer helped you in recovery?
Well, there's two things. First of all, the optimism is terribly important because, as you know, when you have a positive mindset, it affects your biology, it affects your chemical structure, it affects your blood, especially it affects your immune system. And your immune system is enormously powerful in overcoming any infection in your body, including a cancer cell. Every body is full of cancer cells. Only a few bodies will metastasize. The cancer will come to life. Always after a severe emotional event which depresses the immune system. So that's the first thing to understand. The second thing is to have the honesty to deal with the emotional situation that caused this, that caused it to activate, caused it to trigger. And that requires sometimes counseling, requires honesty, requires facing the truth. I hated my parents. I hate my job, my career, I'm in an unhappy marriage. Whatever it is, admit the problem that's causing you this deep unhappiness, because one of the textbook responses is that cancer is passive suicide. Is people have a traumatic event in their life that is so overwhelming, they just don't want to live anymore. And it's not at a conscious level. They call it paranoia at the cell level. It's not at a conscious level. It's at an unconscious level. So they don't even know why until they really face the fact. So that was what is helpful to me.
I want to make sure that we re-emphasize for just a second. You said everybody has cancer cells, everybody, and in some people it metastasizes and becomes a little bit more flagrant.
Yes.
And so the people who it doesn't metastasize in is either because their immune system is healthier, they're dealing with their emotional issues a little bit better.
Yes.
And with other people that may be hiding it, suppressing it,
Yes.
they're also suppressing their immune system.
Yes. Yes.
And so in your particular case, you said there was a business incident
Yes.
that occurred 9 to 12 months earlier that you can pinpoint that may have been the trigger, shall we say,
Yes.
that started the flare-up of cancer cells within you.
Well, as you know, your mind is very powerful. And you and I have very strong minds. We've worked to develop them for decades. And it is a two-edged sword. If you have a very strong mind and you become negative or angry for a period of time, it slices. It can cause all kinds of physical problems, up to and including cancer. One of the things that I learned was they said that throat cancer comes from not being heard. And the situation that I was in, I was very upset about the way the business was going. I had a substantial part of the business, but I did not have control. And so I kept saying, you can't do this. This is going to destroy this business, which I had a lot of emotional and financial investment in, and the people in charge would not listen. And so the textbook says throat cancer comes from not being heard.
Really? Wow.
Yes. And it's amazing. Almost every cancer has an explanation. If you have a cancer anywhere in the body, you go to the books, the non-cancer textbooks, and they'll tell you that this is usually what is going on in your life that triggered that particular type of cancer.
To my mind, there is no doubt in my mind whatsoever that the reason that Brian has survived cancer, will continue to do so, is because of the strength of those muscles right between his ears. Many years ago, the early 1980s, I lost my mother to cancer in 1980. And in the early 80s, I read a book by an oncologist and radiologist, Carl Simonton. And Simonton had written a book called Getting Well Again. And it was a tremendous eye-opener to me. And I'd like to just say a couple words about the message of the book, because that's really the answer to the question, why did Brian survive? Carl Simonton, like Brian, has had an insatiable curiosity. And anybody who is familiar with Brian's work knows that one of his favorite questions is, why do some people succeed when others don't? What's the root cause of success, if you will? And Simonton asked the same question in a somewhat different way. He says, why do some of my patients survive cancer and some do not? And he spent years doing research on that. And he thought perhaps it's weight, perhaps it's skin color, perhaps it is diet, perhaps it's exercise, perhaps it's gender, maybe it is ethnicity. And one by one, he ruled out all physical causes of survival, if you will. And he finally turned his mind, his attention to the mental, emotional reasons. And he came to a conclusion upon which he based a course, which enabled a lot of people to survive cancer. It's the root of his book. And why his conclusion was simply this, that the difference between those who survive cancer and do not survive cancer is their mental attitude. And interestingly enough, where he come up with this answer is through the study of business success literature, as he calls it, the sort of thing that Brian has been writing about for years. Does a person have a goal? Are they committed to that goal? Do they have a deep, burning desire to achieve that goal? Do they have a plan? Do they work that plan? Are they optimistic? Are they hopeless, or do they feel that they have some measure of control over their future and their destiny? And he put together a wonderful program, which I sent my sister to 5 years later when she developed cancer. And I swear to this day that that's the reason she survived. Now, she by nature is not like Brian, but Brian embodies every characteristic that Carl Simonton described. So number one, I'd say it's because of his attitude. A will as strong as iron. And there's no way that Brian was going to allow cancer to defeat him.
So you've been cancer-free now for several months. How was it getting the diagnosis back from the doctors after having the positive mental attitude, from doing the things that you set a course to take care of and do, and then finally speaking to your doctors after chemotherapy, after radiation, after having some loss of control of managing your diet and things like that? What was it like for you?